Have you ever wondered how you can protect your loved ones from a hefty tax bill when they inherit your IRA? Imagine this, you received a call that you've inherited a massive IRA, only to discover that it comes with an equally massive tax burden. Well, that's exactly what happened to one of my clients, and today I'm going to share that story with you, and I'm going to show you how to avoid putting your own loved ones in the same position. So stay tuned to find out how you can keep from burdening your heirs and ensure your legacy lives on as you intended. That's what we're going to talk about on today's show. Well, let's start by looking back at yesterday's show. Yes, this is Death Week on the Ask Ralph podcast, as somebody said. But yesterday we talked about what happens to your debts after you die. And if you missed it, I want to strongly encourage you to go back and listen. It is crucial information that can save your family from a lot of headaches down the road. Remember, you can find all of our episodes at AskRalph.com. Well, now let's kick things off with a message from one of our listeners. Kathy writes this: Dear Ralph, I recently lost my father, and while going through his estate, I discovered he left me as the sole beneficiary of his IRA. To be honest, at first I was touched by his generosity, but now I'm overwhelmed by the tax implications. I'm worried about how this will affect my own financial situation. Is there anything I can do to minimize the tax burden? And how can I make sure I don't put my own children in the same position when it's my turn to pass on my assets? I know you always have some valuable answers, so I hope you can help me today. Well, Kathy, thank you so much for your message. And first of all, let me start by saying this. I am sorry for you losing your father. That is a difficult thing to talk about. But I completely understand your concerns. And your situation is really common. I hear about this all the time. And that's exactly what we're going to address on today's show. Welcome to the show. My goal today is to help you gain financial freedom while growing in your faith. So I want to thank you for joining me on this journey. Today is Tax Talk Thursday. And before we dive into the topic, I want to tell you to go visit our website. That's at AskRalph.com. There, I want you to join our community. And if you're finding value, I want you to share this show with somebody else who might benefit from the information. And when you join our email list, you join our community, I'm going to give you a free copy of my book. It's called Mastering Your Finances. Now, if you were to go buy this on Amazon, it would cost you $10, but it's absolutely free when you join our email list. And while we're here, I want to remind you, don't forget this show is all about answering your questions. That's why we call it Ask Ralph. So send them to me. Here's my email address. It's ralph@askralph.com, or you can simply visit askralph.com, click on the microphone icon at the bottom of the screen, and record your message, and I will put your question on the show. As we explore today's topic, let's keep in mind the words of 1 Timothy chapter 5, verse 8. Anyone who does not provide for their relatives, and especially for their own household, has denied the faith and is worse than an unbeliever. Ouch. Well, the truth is that verse reminds us the importance of not only providing for our loved ones during our lifetime, but also planning wisely for their future after we're gone. And guess what? We're all going to be in that position someday. We're all going to die. That is a certainty. But the other thing this verse does is it emphasizes our responsibility to care for our family members. And that directly aligns with the episode today. We're going to focus on estate planning. We're going to talk about protecting heirs from unnecessary financial burdens. And it underscores this main purpose. And that is, with proper financial planning, is not just a practical matter, but it's also a spiritual one. And that's why this show is all about your Christian perspective on finance. Well, let me start today's show by sharing a story that really brings home the importance of today's topic. A few years ago, I had a client. Let's call him Victor. Now, Victor came to me. He was distressed. You could see it in his face. Now, Victor had just inherited a substantial IRA from his uncle, which was fantastic. His uncle was generous, and he wanted to provide Victor for money well after he was gone. Now, on the surface, this was fantastic. This was a wonderful gift. It was found money. But as Victor and I dug into the details, the reality of the situation started to sink in. Now, Victor's uncle was very successful. He had accumulated over $2 million in his IRA over his lifetime. That was put in there with hard work. Day in and day out savings. And listen, that's an impressive sum. And Victor was thrilled. Like I said, it's found money. But here's the complication. Because Victor wasn't his spouse, it was his son, Victor couldn't simply roll that inherited IRA into his own account. Instead, he was required to start taking distributions immediately. And if you understand how that works, here's the problem. those distributions were taxable as ordinary income to Victor. Now, Victor was a hardworking person himself. He was already in a high tax bracket due to his own successful career. And these additional distributions, what did they do? They pushed him into an even higher tax bracket. And what did it do? Well, it effectively erased a significant portion of this inheritance because of those taxes. And here's the bigger issue. Because of the size of the IRA, Victor was forced to take substantial distributions every year. He didn't need the money. Victor was doing well himself, but he had to take it. That's just the truth. So I'll never forget, Victor came in, we sat down face to face, and we started putting together a tax plan of what this was going to look like. And we calculated, and I said to Victor, I said, listen, Victor, you are going to end up paying $800,000 in taxes over the next 10 years, just from this inheritance. He was shocked. He couldn't believe what I was telling him. So what was intended as a generous gift had turned into a significant financial burden. Now listen, a lot of people are probably saying, Ralph, dude, think about this. Victor just got $2 million that he wasn't expecting. And that's true. I can't argue with that. But on today's show, I want to talk about what are some ways that we can mitigate that tax cost, because think about it. Victor inherited $2 million in the IRA, but it cost him $800,000 in taxes. So as much as his uncle wanted to provide for him, he only was able to give him $1.2 million of that $2 million because of the tax burden. So good old Uncle Sam got almost 50% of that money. And the problem is Victor's story isn't unique. In fact, you know what? Right now, this is hitting close to home for me. My mother-in-law is going through dementia. She's in a great facility, but her finances are structured in a very similar way. Most of her money is in that IRA. Now, she intends to leave it to her children, and that's wonderful. That's great intentions. But the problem is, if I've talked to my wife, I talked about with her sister, they got to deal with the tax implications when the time comes. So you might be asking, Ralph, what can we do to prevent this situation? How can we keep from burdening our heirs with an inherited IRA? And I don't have all the answers, but I have some things you can try. So let me share some strategies that can help you. The first thing you might want to consider is what's called a Roth conversion. So that's an effective strategy where you gradually convert that traditional IRA money to a Roth IRA. And yes, you're going to pay taxes on that converted amount, but the heirs are going to thank you later because those IRAs grow tax-free, and when they go to distribute that money, there's no tax at all. I talked about this on a prior show. There's a bunch of things you got to consider when you're looking at doing this, but it's something you might want to look at to mitigate that tax cost. Another thing you could do is consider using life insurance. You could use some of your IRA distributions to fund a life insurance policy. Why would you do that, you ask? Well, the death benefit from life insurance is generally tax-free to your beneficiary, so that would give them a lump sum that isn't subject to income tax or require minimum distributions. Another thing you consider, if you're charitably inclined, you could create what's called a charitable remainder trust. If you name that charitable remainder trust as your IRA beneficiary. And this can provide income for your heirs for a set period of time, with the remainder going to the charity. And that's really a win-win that can reduce the tax burden on your beneficiaries. Again, that's a very specific thing. You want to talk to somebody like myself specifically about how to do it. Another thing you can do, and this one is sort of a no-brainer. A lot of financial advisors miss this. One of the things you can do is you can spend down your IRA. And now this might sound counterintuitive. You may be thinking, Ralph, wait a minute, dude, that makes no sense. But if you've got other assets, you might want to consider spending your IRA funds during your lifetime. That way, when you get to the end, you don't have a big chunk of IRA. So you use your IRA for living expenses and leave more tax-efficient assets to your heirs. Another thing you can do is you can split this over multiple beneficiaries. So instead of leaving your entire IRA to one person, and what's funny about this, like I've seen this play out where person might pass away and they left it to one person with the intention of that one person's going to split it among the other beneficiaries. That is a bad plan. One of the things you should consider doing is splitting it right up as a named beneficiary, because what this effectively does is it spreads out that tax burden and it keeps each beneficiary in a lower tax bracket. Again, it depends on the specific situations of your situation. So you want to talk with a tax professional and talk to your attorney before you get into it. And the final thing, this one is huge. you've got to educate your heirs. You got to make sure every beneficiary understands the implications of inheriting an IRA. To be very candid with you, in our family, most people had no clue until I laid it out for them. I'm like, Ralph, wait a minute. You're telling me that the money that we're going to inherit from mom when she passes away, we're going to lose 40% of that in tax? And I said, yeah, if you don't structure it correct, that can happen. So I'm going to encourage you to, educate them, encourage them to seek professional advice before making any decisions about those distributions. Because once you're gone, they're going to get a call, they're going to get a letter from the person that handles that IRA, and they're going to have a couple boxes to check. And remember this, the key with all of this is to start planning early, because these strategies take time to implement, especially those conversions, and especially, spending down that money. But the sooner you start, the more options you're going to have. Now, I want to go back to Kathy's question about what she can do in her current situation. Now, Kathy, as I've alluded to, your options are more limited now that you've inherited an IRA. It's, you can't go back and have your father spend that money down or put in that remainder trust. But there are some steps that you can take. So what are those steps? Number one thing you want to do, this is a no-brainer. You want to stretch out those distributions. The IRS allows you to take those inherited IRA monies over 10 years. Now, again, this is going to depend on your personal tax situation. If you're retired yourself, you don't have a lot of income, we can take a look at see what this would impact it would have based on the different tax brackets. So you've got some flexibility by using that 10 years. So you definitely probably are not going to take it all in 1 year, but let's say you take it over 10 years, then you can smooth that out over that 10-year period. Let me give you a simple example. Let's say that somebody leaves you $500,000 in the IRA. Now, if you take all of that money in the current year, that's going to add $500,000 worth of ordinary income to your tax return, and that's going to zonk you on the tax rate. It's just going to do that. So one of the strategies you can employ, like I said, is take that over 10 years. So instead of adding $500,000 in 1 year, you're going to add $50,000 to each year. That's going to certainly not put you in that highest tax bracket. Again, it depends on your situation. Another thing you consider is use the inheritance strategically. And this one is it's more of a function of how you're handling your money. So use those inherited funds for specific purposes that align with your financial goals. Maybe it's a good time to pay off high interest debt. Maybe this is a good time to put a lot of money away for your children's education. But if you use it strategically, then you might not get that tax benefit right away, but over the long term, it's going to go for a good purpose. And this one, again, I'm going to stress this 10 times and 3 times on Tuesday, and that is consult a tax professional. This is not a simple situation. This is complex. This is not something you're going to go to TurboTax or go find your answer online. It is crucial that you work with a qualified tax advisor who can help you navigate the rules and optimize your strategy. That's what we do. The strategies I mentioned earlier, like that Roth conversion, using that life insurance, those can be excellent tools to consider as part of your own estate planning. But again, you've got to look at your particular specific situation. So let's do a bit of a recap. So today we explored the potential pitfalls of leaving a large IRA to your heirs. And that's a cool thing to do. It's a beautiful thing to do. But there are ways to help mitigate that tax strategy. And we talked about those things. We talked about how to mitigate those taxes. Because overall, the goal is to pass on your hard-earned wealth in the most efficient way possible and minimize that tax burden on your loved ones. Like Kathy said, that situation I had where the person inherited $2 million in the IRA, but the IRS is going to take $800,000 of that. Now, I know right now you might be feeling overwhelmed. You might be thinking, all this information is just too much, Ralph. My head's going to explode. Well, don't worry about it. I'm here to help you. I want to encourage you to schedule an appointment with me, and we can create a personalized plan for managing your finances. Maybe you need help managing that estate stuff. You can do that. You can go sign up for a consultation with me. I charge $150 for that consultation fee. You can do that at askralphpodcast.com/store, and I will work with you to improve your personal finances. Maybe you have a business and you need some help with your business. Maybe it's you're managing those business finances or growing your business. I can help you achieve all of your personal financial goals. All you've got to do is start by scheduling today, and let's create a plan that ensures your legacy benefits and you set your loved ones up exactly how you intend. Now, tomorrow's show, we're going to talk about why does a great credit score matter even in retirement? A lot of people don't think about this. And we're getting off death, so that's even better. It's a topic that might surprise you, and I promise it'll be an eye-opening discussion. Remember this. My passion is to help you achieve financial success. I want you to live out your dreams. I want you to grow into faith. And I know together, if we work together, we can master your finances from a Christian perspective. So as I always say, stay financially savvy and God bless you.
Thank you for joining us on the Ask Ralph podcast. And with a simple click to subscribe, we'll invite you back to our next episode. And remember, financial issues don't have to be complicated. Just ask Ralph. The information contained in this episode of Ask Ralph is based on data available as of the date of its release. Saggio Accounting Plus and Ask Ralph Media, Inc. is under no obligation to update this content if changes occur. Applying this information to your specific situation requires careful consideration of all facts and circumstances, and any information provided is not to be considered as financial, tax, or legal advice. Please consult your tax advisor or attorney before acting on any material covered.